What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This week we are back on our 1957 GMC Stepside with that LS3. In the last episode, we finished up all those little teeny fabrication things that were needed, as well as stripping that truck down to the bare frame. This week we're going to be doing the final assembly of that Roadstershop chassis, but not before we get a fresh coat of paint on it. So let's get all those parts prepped, painted, and cured so we can get this thing bolted together one last time. All right, it's paint day. The chassis is about to get painted, our rear end over here, all set up. Everything has been primed with a direct to metal self-etching primer, and then another primer over that. Everything's been sanded down with 800 grit. So last step is we're gonna go ahead and wipe everything down with a degreaser, wax and grease remover. This is Poppy Patina. I'm probably gonna use some of this pre-cleaner as well. Just throw a little bit in our spray bottle. We'll give everything a little wipe down. All of our parts are ready, chassis ready. And we finally got our paint mixture dialed in. This is gonna be the leather of the interior, and this is gonna be the color of the interior, the engine bay, our chassis, our suspension, everything except for the exterior of the truck. We'll save that for a little bit here. But after a little bit of trials and tribulation, we kind of got it dialed in. Now this is a base coat with no clear over it. So we're gonna be using a matte or a satin. The chassis is gonna be matte, some of the suspension parts will be satin, interior will be satin. So our interior is gonna be kind of monotone. Everything's gonna be pretty much red with the exception of a little bit of billet or a little bit of black satin, like our steering column probably, our pedals, some of our instrument cluster will be black, and our Restomod AC controls. We got our complete chassis, all of our suspension parts, our rear end, everything has been painted and pretty much ready to assemble. Before I do so, I had a brilliant thought last night. I said, you know what? Why not throw on a little armor shield? So a little ceramic coating on our chassis. It's a matte finish, and if you guys know, matte finishes are not the easiest to clean. So I figured, why not throw a little quick coat on this while we can? I mean, this is a great opportunity to do so. So this is the first time I'll be applying armor shield onto a chassis, but why not? So let's get that done, and then we're gonna start assembling this chassis. All right, we got our chassis all armor shield up. So we got our ceramic coating applied to our chassis. I'm gonna go ahead and start with our front control arms, our spindles, our steering rack, get our coils on. Then we're gonna probably move to the back, get our rear end set up, get that in place, start putting our lines on, sway bar, fuel cell, you know, the whole nine. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here in the front. All right, we got the front end all reassembled and did it without scratching any paint, man. So got to be real careful once you get all this stuff coated. But front's back in. We dropped the rear end kind of in place with a little flat cart. It's sitting up on some jack stands, so I'm getting ready to jump onto the rear end. All right, making some good progress on our chassis. We got our whole rear end suspension, our rear end in. We got all our brake lines put back on with all of our little clamps. We got our booster in, brake line going all the way up to the front across the cross member. We got our motor mounts back on, our transmission cross member. Our whole front suspension is all in. So next thing we're gonna be doing is plopping our motor and transmission back in. But I need a hand for that, and unfortunately I'm by myself. So tomorrow I'm gonna grab Andrew, we're gonna get this stuff thrown in, and we will have a rolling chassis again. I may even go ahead and put the exhaust on, and good news, our wheels have been shipped out on Friday, so we're gonna have a rolling chassis with wheels. I'm excited.
All right, so we're moving forward on getting the chassis assembled on the GMC. Brakes, steering, and suspension, and a majority of the plumbing are already on the chassis. Now we're moving into getting the engine and transmission installed. Before we get them bolted together, I'm gonna go ahead and put our flywheel adapter and the flex plate on, and then we can go ahead and bolt the transmission. It's a 480 transmission and our LS3. Let's get these things bolted together, and then we'll get them installed between the frame rails. Transmission now installed between the frame rails, we can go ahead and put our drive shaft in. We've got another custom made piece from Knoxville Driveline. They do great for us every time we order. We've also needed to get a slip yoke installed, so they've got us covered there. Proper sized U-joints. We always go overkill with our large style 1350 style U-joints, because, you know, who knows what kind of mayhem the driver is going to cause with the accelerator pedal. But driveline looks nice. We took up proper measurements, and they've built us exactly the piece that we need. So we're going to get this thing installed. I've also got some U-bolts up there on the shelf that were provided by quick performance when they sent us over our third member for our Ford 9-inch. One thing I am missing though, to round this all out, is all the hardware. I think I'm still missing a couple of these nuts here, but we'll get those. We'll get those. So let's get this drive shaft installed.
All right, Andrew's got our ITBs all put back together. We are gonna be changing out our valley cover here to a nice billet one. We ordered that yesterday, so this will get swapped out, getting rid of this hose line right here that we're not gonna be using, and it just make it look a little nicer. Also, we're gonna be getting rid of these stock valve covers and throwing on our special billet, custom Salvage to Savage billet valve covers that we get from JC. We've used them a bunch. So yesterday I went ahead and did a little black inlay on our logo. I'll go ahead and show you guys that. So we're gonna pull these off. My hardware is a little long, so I gotta cut about a 1/4 inch off of all these to get that on. Like I said yesterday, I went ahead and added a little detail to the valve covers. It's pretty simple. I use a pinstriping brush and some pinstriping paint, and you just kind of like feed it in there. It's engraved, so you know it's inset a little bit, so the paint just kind of stays in there. Got a little spillage here or there, but just take a little Q-tip with some acetone and clean it right up. So those come out pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and take these over to the bandsaw, get a little bit cut off of these. We'll clean it up with our thread chaser. We got to put our cover on our front port and this little doohickey thingamabob on the front, on the back one. So we'll be adding a catch can somewhere in the truck, and we'll be pulling off of our valve cover. So let's go ahead and get these cut and throw them on. There you go. That sure does look a whole lot better. She's looking clean, man. Once we get this valley cover changed out, I think it's going to change a whole lot of the appearance of the motor. We got our headers over getting Cerakoted satin black, which will match our engine. And then we go ahead and throw the exhaust on. That pretty much wraps up our chassis. Our chassis, our drivetrain, everything is really coming along on our 57 GMC build. And good news, man, we just got our set of wheels in. These are from VP Modular, a company out in California. Super nice. Worked with a guy named David. He was really cool throughout the process of designing the wheels and to getting them to our door. So, you know, it's not normal that we don't have a truck body on our chassis at this point when our wheels come in, but before I go get our tires mounted on it, we are going to just kind of throw the wheels on there, check our back spacing, make sure we have clearance with the brakes and all that kind of good stuff. I have a pretty good feeling that Andrew did some good measurements and got the right dimensions over, so I feel pretty confident, but rather be safe than sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rear wheel and one of the front wheels mounted onto the chassis and just check all the clearances before we get tires mounted. All right, we got our wheels mounted on. Our rears seem to be perfect, man. These things are huge. 24 by 12s in the rear. Running a big old meaty 305. Plenty of clearance, obviously, for our brakes. Matter of fact, these rotors look pretty tiny inside of there. However, on the front, these are 22 by 8.5. Brake clearance, all good. However, when you bring this thing to full turn, we are hitting our sway bar. So we're gonna be getting our cab and our front fenders mounted back on this thing here in the next day or so. And we have two options. One is to throw a little spacer on there, bringing our wheel out a little bit, which will probably fix that issue. And if we don't have room to go out, Andrew thought we could do some kind of a steering stop off our control arm, just so that basically it will stop the wheel from hitting our sway bar when you try to do a full turn. We'll just stop it, you know, an 1/8 inch or so right before our sway bar, like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring these things over to Dixie Tire, get some tires mounted on them, and then we'll be rolling this thing back into our shop, getting our cab dropped on here, and doing some final body work and starting to get that thing painted. So this thing is getting close.
All right, so continuing on getting stuff bolted onto the engine while it's mounted on the chassis. During this final assembly stage, I'm going to start working on getting our spark plug wires nice and tidied up. We've got our coils mounted remotely down next to the block, tucked nice and low, so we can keep everything nice and clear up front and give a nice clear view of the valve covers and all the induction system. So we're going to next just make some small brackets to mount our spark plug wires. I've got a build your own style set, so I've got a long length of wire. I can cut them to whatever length I please. I've got some 45 boots on my coils and a 45 boot up here at the spark plug already. So just keeping them high and away from the heat. What I do plan on doing is just using some 1/8 inch stainless steel plate, cutting some tabs, and then just using the existing holes right here on the head to bolt the tabs on. Yeah, so just using these little plastic MSD wire separators. They have a nice tapered hole here, so I can put a fastener. I've already cut my piece out on the plasma table and started sanding it down and finishing it, getting all the edges real nice so it looks real clean up here. One will sit here, one will hold there, and then I'll have a third one and maybe a fourth one. Third one will go on this top hole here, and then possibly a fourth one kind of further down. So should be a real simple little deal. Let's get to finishing it up. So you can see it's just a simple little L bracket basically. This isn't the hardware that I'm going to use. I'm going to use a socket head Allen, so it'll look nice, just like the rest of the hardware on the front of the engine, you can see. So I'll be using the same type of socket head Allen here, make it look nice. And then I'm hoping to make these short enough that I could just kind of have it here and you really don't see much of this metal sticking out. So probably have it pushed up over here all the way up to the head, just like that. And then we'll cut it long enough just so the plastic can rest on it, and I can put a threaded hole through this 1/8 inch material. So it'll be sitting kind of like that. It'll look real smooth, real nice and neat. You'll almost not be able to tell that this is here once I'm done. So now I'm going to cut this guy to length, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright, now you can see how these are bolted on. You can see this is sitting a little bit crooked and not parallel with the top of the cylinder head. I'd rather have it looking nice and clean and parallel, so I got to pull up a little bit of material off of the bracket still right there. But overall, it looks pretty good. Like I said, I still have to make one more bracket. I'm gonna use one more bracket utilizing the cylinder head hole right there. And then I'll use 2 clamps to secure both sets of spark plug wires. I'm gonna use the same material here. I'm gonna make another bracket that just juts out over this way. I'm gonna start measuring out for this guy, and then we'll go ahead and cut it, drill it, bend it, install it. All right, so I got my last bracket on. I've mounted the separators on here already. I've got the hardware on there. You can see the final product here. Everything is nice and tidy, kept away from the heat. Aesthetically, looks great. The last part about this is going to be crimping the ends on our boots for the ignition coils. So I've already started to cut these down, cut them to length, crimp on the proper terminal, put them in the boot and install them for the last time. This side will be completed, then we'll move on to the driver side. Got the coils, I'm all terminated down here. Passenger side is complete. Now we just got to do the same thing on the other side. All right, I've already got my exhaust manifolds bolted on, but they're not on completely, just kind of held in place right now. Just got them back from our powder coater. They just got finished in a black Cerakote or high temp coating. I'm not sure if it's specifically Cerakote, but it's a high temp header coating in a low gloss black color. Just got my Cometic exhaust manifold gaskets, and I ended up picking up some stainless hardware here. Some M8 125s to get these manifolds bolted on. So we'll get those bolted on for the last time, and then we'll go ahead and bring our exhaust in and bolt in our full exhaust system.
All right, guys, now that we got that fresh coat of bright red paint on our chassis, we got them new wheels, and we got our LS3 pop back in, as well as all those other little bits and pieces. All we got left to do is pop our cab and our bed on this thing, but before we get to that, we have a whole bunch of body work and paint left to do, so that's gonna be next week's episode. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.